All right. Well, I'm so excited about this show today, especially after a couple phone calls from different people. But this show is going to relate to so many people. We have on the show a man who started out as a struggling student, wasn't very good in school. Then he became a Navy SEAL, which is like my major hero status. Then he's a CEO of a hospital. And if you think about that transition for a moment, when people are struggling and go, I can't even get out of school, how can I change the world? Well, here's a man that we're going to talk to that is doing that. And not only does he change the world, he's the only Navy SEAL that's ever become a CEO of a hospital. And with healthcare the way it is today, and people are afraid to go to the hospital because sometimes people think that if they go to the hospital, they're never going to come out. They're supposed to go to the hospital, be healthy, not get sicker and die. So we have a leader who's led his whole life on the show, and I can't be more excited. Welcome to the show, Jeff Mengenhausen.
Thank you. Thank you.
You said that pretty good, Terry.
Thank you. You know, it's better than what he was telling me earlier. So, so you went from being a poor student, a label that might be, some people define that for their life. They think they're a failure. They think they can't learn anything. They can't study anything. And then you became a SEAL, which is the epitome of leadership. Can you talk to us about this journey before we even get to the hospital side?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was the late 90s, right? And so I was the typical, jock in high school. I played baseball, football, wrestling, and then track, and that's just what I lived for. Very competitive, very aggressive, and yes, I could have went and wrestled probably even Division One, but I wanted something different. I grew up in a huge metropolitan area called Howard, South Dakota, town of 1,000. Growing up on a farm, and I'm like, you know what? I want to try something different. So I looked up, hardest military training in the world. Right when the internet, late 90s kind of coming out, and it had Green Berets and it had Navy SEALs. And it was right when Charlie Sheen actually had that Navy SEAL movie. I'm like, oh, it's so cool. And I've been to the ocean once in that part of my life, and I lived, and so I'm like, yeah, why not? I could swim, okay, sure. And I'm going to try to be a Navy SEAL. And joined right after high school and jumped right into it and went to boot camp, did that whole thing. And then I went to A school, which is, I was intelligence specialist. A school was kind of your training in the regular Navy. And I was in Dam Neck, Virginia Beach, Virginia, Dam Neck base, where actually SEAL Team 6 is. And that's where 9/11 happened for me, is when I was in school at that time. And that's actually where I learned how to swim from some good buddies of mine that were surfers from California, and everybody working out. And then from transitioning from there, I went into BUDS right after that. So it was kind of that transition. But when I look at military and I talk to people just about just life coaching or just being in high school, I'm like, man, I barely graduated. And I feel that the military and the SEAL teams are kind of that Control-Alt-Delete button, that reset button for me to give me direction and a purpose. I wouldn't have done great in college, I think, going right after high school, but that is kind of my journey of just getting to BUDS.
My favorite shirt I wear, and I wear it a lot. I actually got it from a event down in Dallas, but it's a shirt says "Embrace the Suck." And I used to wear it on the show until Spencer's girlfriend, Karen, said, the only thing that's showing up on the camera said suck. And I went, okay, I better take that shirt off, because the way I was sitting, it was not working the way I thought it was. But that's like one of my favorite shirts. And that's and I find out, I should have known this, but I find out that's kind of the ethos of the Navy SEALs. Mm-hmm. We could easily talk SEALs for an hour, but I kind of want to get into healthcare. And how does this embrace the suck leadership, and which is a zero tolerance to failure? I think every businessman needs to have that ethos, because if you think failure is an option, you will fail. And how did you take that ethos and transform across the country leadership in healthcare and changing hospitals? Can we just kind of start that dialogue?
Yeah. No, I think when I got out of the SEAL teams, I went and worked for a defense contracting company, finished my degrees. And then everybody, the question is like, how did you get into healthcare in the first place? And there's a federally qualified community health center called Horizon Healthcare, which the CEO for 38 years grew it from 2 clinics to now 28. He retired a couple of years ago. That man's name is John Mengenhausen. It was my father. And so I cut my teeth in healthcare working for my old man as the chief operating officer for Horizon Healthcare. But when you move your wife, who's originally from Georgia, and then hanging out at the beach at Virginia Beach, Virginia, to a town of 1,000 where it snows and it's very cold, it's kind of a culture shock. And so we never be stuck. And so I kind of jumped into healthcare. And what I'm finding is just the bringing the business side and the kind of the can-do attitude. And I've been kind of starting to present on it is just bringing that attitude and that atmosphere of fun and just, yes. And you look at the SEAL ethos, never fail. You always push forward, right? If you get knocked down, you get up and you go faster. And I think it's that just can-do attitude and bringing like, nope, we're going to do this. And it's a 20-mile march. Really, that's all it is in healthcare. You have to keep moving forward every day, one step. It's not one great big leadership change or one great big thing. It's all these small incremental things. Keep moving forward for that vision. And it's just doing it day after day and staying consistent with that never fail. Because you're in healthcare right now, you're getting beat down, right? It was COVID. Now it's the big, beautiful bill or whatever it is, right? Or it's the insurance companies or the labor, whatever it is, just adapt and change and keep moving forward. And that's what's been driving my organization, the hospital, to continue to strive.
It's fantastic. Do you miss being with that camaraderie in the SEAL, with the SEALs like that? Do you miss that?
I do. I mean, it's when I got out and, if you were to stay in, unfortunately, if you know about the SEAL teams, it's about an 89% divorce rate if you stay in for 20 years. And it is so true. Wow. And I got out and, yes, I did a lot of things, but I definitely miss that camaraderie, that adrenaline, that competition, and trying to, it was a transition moving from that, being kind of always going and always moving and always, overseas or training to now sitting at a desk. And wow, I still remember it was a huge transition for me.
So Jeff, with that said, what I'm curious about is that transition. And if there was a moment of crisis during your tenure in the SEALs, if there was like a defining moment, a purpose, or something that you still use when you are, providing leadership in a hospital or making change, which is pretty challenging at this time. Do you have any of those moments that you use to, bring back, empower you, or recall, or use as a template?
Yeah, I think, I've seen it. I think there's kind of two styles in the SEAL teams. There's the just raw, I'm in your face, aggressive team guy. And I have, one of my best friends, he actually got shot in the tricep, and I saw him after it happened. He's like, I think it's stronger now. I'm like, oh my God, man. You're just a big dumb animal, aren't you? Just keep moving forward. And I take more of, I guess, the quiet professional approach, right? And I've seen, right, the aggression and just like, oh, this is how it's going to be done, and that just intensity moving forward. And then I've seen it where we were working with like another base, and this team guy would raise his voice, and then the other guy would raise his voice, and it just became this shouting match. I'm like, there's nothing being accomplished right now. And definitely moving from the SEAL teams and having those crucial conversations, right? I'm more worried about getting punched in the face by another guy versus here in healthcare, I talk about feelings and different things. So I've had to adapt. Yeah. But it's how can you move leadership without having to be that, this is the way we go? Or how can you empower people to actually do the right thing? It's the same thing as SEAL teams. We all went through buds. We're all rock stars and athletes and all this and that. How can you empower them to move the entire team forward? I don't need to micromanage you because I trust you and you're good at what you do. And so I've kind of taken that and infused it into my leadership. And man, it's after 4 years of being here, I'm not the one driving the growth. I'm not the one being innovative. I'm actually having to pull the reins on everybody like, whoa, slow down, everybody here. Let's be strategic on it. And that's what's beautiful.
Hey, Jeff, I want to just interject something. You said something, and only because of what just recently happened, I want to kind of bring some today stuff into this conversation. And the one thing I respected about Charlie Kirk, who was just assassinated, was you never heard him yell when he went up against opposition. And here's a guy that would go against anybody. You didn't, I've heard so many people go, I didn't believe 80% of the stuff he said, but I respected him for how he said it. And is that something that you've learned in your transition from yelling and doing that to now you're talking at a different level? I mean, can we try and blend these two current events to kind of how your life is and what lessons we can learn?
Yeah, I think if you look at Charlie Kirk, right, and he just pure intensity. There's one video where this older gentleman wanted to fight him, didn't even want to talk it out, right? He's like, let's duke it out right now. And he's like, why? Yeah. Right? And people, when they start to feel that they're losing an argument or their best thing is they revert to violence. Mm-hmm. I still remember I was not here. I was in a kind of a bigger system. And I first got there and I had this very large physician and he was 6'5" or something. And he had this tendency of being loud and just kind of intimidating by his size. And he'd start to kind of, he'd start looking over you and looking down on you and kind of doing that. And I remember he was upset when I first moved there. And I was sitting in a chair talking to a manager and just kind of real relaxed. And he is just hot. And he's saying something, just breathing fire and like leaning over me. I'm like, I don't think you're hearing me. I'm like, no, I hear you, right? I hear him, we'll get it fixed. Yeah. And it actually drove him crazy because he couldn't work me up. But I think it's, you revert back to the SEAL team, like, really, dude, like it's okay. You want to fight me or like, this is not stressful. I'm not getting shot at. Wow. It's a lower stress level for me. And it's, I think it's a self-confidence thing. It's like, I don't need to engage in your level. How can I bring you down and actually have an engaging conversation? I think that's where Charlie Kirk was so brilliant, is that he could just stay here the whole time. You speak louder, he's going to speak softer and slower to bring you back down. Like, hey, let's keep talking. You're up here. We're not going to accomplish anything.
First of all, I'm so glad you brought that up because this is kind of a learning moment or experience for those who are listening and or watching this program. And that is, there's a physiological effect that goes on that I commend you for. There's a primitive level of thinking, and then there's an executive level of thinking. And if you can tap into the executive level of thinking, then you don't have to resort to violence and wanting to punch somebody out. And goodness knows, I've felt that primitive level before. But when you sit back and you think it out and resort to a more an ability to create a dialogue of inspiration or influence or to help someone calm down because they want to fight you. So how do I always mention something about, a white belt in martial arts will want to go around kicking everybody's ass. You know it. Whereas if you're a 10th degree black belt, you are looking at harmony and that you could, kill the guy, which is probably, Jeff, probably what you were thinking. You could probably choke him out, but what good is it, Anyway, so that I think would be a real good defining moment for you is you've experienced the trauma and the drama and, you've been there. So, running a hospital is less trauma and drama.
Yeah. And I think, in today's, right, we're always getting attacked. We're in healthcare. And I have people like, I get the question, how do you always say positive, right? And I tell people as you get up higher and higher in leadership, I mean, you look at like President Trump or Biden or Obama, whoever, I don't care, not politics, but when they said they instead of them. Why did he use the word they? You're overanalyzed. And when you get up into leadership, when I walk out my door, out of my office, I'm the optimist. Because if I walked around and like, oh, the budget, all the legislative changes, all the payers aren't paying us, I got people, yelling at me, like you're going to bring everybody else down. You are the light that is actually pushing everybody forward. Yes, in your head, you're screaming like, oh my gosh, this is stressful. But I've noticed is you have to be that role model and lead from the front and continuing to push forward.
That's great, man. So I'm going to get down and dirty with this thought process because I'm hoping that you are not only the savior, but an example to all other hospital administrators and those who are trying to make a difference, and especially in this changing environment. Hospitals were once a place that, people would they go to get saved. And yet, in this era, hospitals seem to be a place where people get sicker. There's unnecessary tests done. Doctors are spending less time with you. It's getting more costly, and people end up going in debt. So could you please tell us how you plan on flipping the script on this culture?
Yeah, I think when you look at how do you, because everybody's remembering COVID, it's all these lingering stuff and then infection. And, our vision here at Montrose Regional Health is there's a star rating. So it'll be a 5-star in CMS. Government, is the top of the top. 1 star being low. It's pretty simple. Well, we're a 4-star. How do we get to be a 5-star? And I think by January we will be, and then maintaining it. We'll leapfrog A. And then looking at, we're in the top community hospitals, top 100 community hospitals in the country. Okay, great. How do we break in the top 20? Right? It's not the focus on the revenue. It's actually the focus on the quality and safety of the patients. Because and the patient experience, because if you provide fantastic quality care in what you do as a small hospital or as a university or Mayo, right? If you provide great quality and they're safe and they have a great patient experience, for someone like us, kind of a smaller hospital, mid-sized hospital, I can compete with the Mayos, the Cleveland Clinics, the big boys, Kaiser and UC and the universities, because I'm taking care of my community and they trust me. They trust us that they come here and that they're receiving high quality care and they're safe. And they come to us in the time of their desperate need. And how do you help them, right? It's not, and it starts at the beginning. You imagine your mom, right, coming into our hospital and you save their life and the ED and they go to the cath lab and you do the cardiac procedure and then they hit ICU and then they hit med surge and they had the best food because we're ranked 99th in percentile. You can get, salmon with some shrimp in the middle with crab on top here at the hospital because of the patient experience, right?
Wow.
And they go, and then all of a sudden we bill them wrong. And then they're calling us and we're kind of a little rude to them. Hey, you just need to pay your bill, and they're fighting with their insurance company. How do you think that patient experience went? So I switched it here, and it's kind of taking back to the SEAL team buds that everybody went through buds together. No matter if you're an officer or enlisted, everybody in this organization is a caregiver. I'm a caregiver, physicians are caregivers, nurses, but EVS, what about the housekeeping when nobody's in the room with them when they're in there with the patient? What about the biller, the collector, right? They know they have to pay the bill, but how does that experience and how can you help them through it? It doesn't just stop with the care, it stops with everything. And then once you build that trust in your community, man, I'm pulling patients from other communities. They don't even live here just because of the reputation of what we have. And that's how I'm fighting against it, is actually putting my mouth where it is just saying, this is where we're moving.
What is the grading criteria when a hospital is looked at by these independent surveyors? I mean, what is that they're looking for?
So, it goes on cleanliness of the hospital, your infection rates, your patient experience scores, your market share, really, because if you have really strong market share within your community, well, then they trust you. If you have, in the out migration, if I have people driving an hour to receive healthcare, that's an issue. How do I fix that issue? Right? It's all about access as well. So if you get the big C word that you might have cancer from your primary care physician, and you call our cancer institute and they tell you 6 to 8 weeks, I think we can have you see, Dr. Smith. What do you think? Like, oh, hell no. Like, screw that. I will drive an hour. I'll drive 5 hours to Denver to go figure out what's going on. You can call our cancer center right now. 1 to 3 days will get you in. Right. And so it's taking all those measures that they have and making sure we're solid. And that's how they score all of us.
How would you, as a hospital has become more popular, how would you be able to expedite somebody's ability to be seen, a patient's ability to be seen and diagnosed or put at ease with what's going on, when all the other ones you have to wait so long?
Yeah, it's the first thing I implemented was, we're in the generation now, right? Everybody has information on their fingertips. Like, I want to know this. Google, what's this? AI, what's this, right? So if they have to wait any longer than 2 weeks, and so each clinic that I have, third next available new patient has to be within 10 days. And so that's how we're driving growth. I have clinics, pretty much all my clinics are growing 10, 15, 20% year over year because of access. Now, I do have some other clinics that are struggling, but on an average, we're adding 30 plus providers every year. Some, retirement turnover, but it's just continuing to add more. And that's actually the problem I'm having, is having clinic space to sustain that growth. But now what's happening is I have 4 or 5 surrounding communities with their own hospitals saying, like, I'm going to drive down to Montrose because they got a new GI program, or they got a really good spine guy I heard about. I'm going to go get a second opinion from them. And so now we're actually people coming to us for that quality of care. And that's really driving that growth. And it's not just the out-migration, it's actually the people sitting on their couch not getting care. We opened our GI program. Within the first 3 months, we had 700 new patients. Within 4 months, we had 1,000. Where are these people coming from? Just like scopes. It's not the people that we're seeing, we lost 500 to Grand Junction, which is an hour away. It's people sitting on the sofa not getting their care. Like, I saw 20 patients at Walmart yesterday that need it and that we need to provide for them because they don't want to drive to the urban settings, especially in the rural market.
Hey, Jeff, real quick. I'm sorry, Terry. I wanted to ask, to be able to see those kind of numbers and have that many patients, how are you finding new doctors as far as experience, or, you're obviously having turnover with doctors who are retiring and then others coming in. Are you noticing a difference in behavior, character in new doctors versus old ones, maybe?
100%. I mean, yeah, there's difference, right, between the older seasoned generation versus the new ones. I think the new physicians and people coming on more work-life balance and trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
What we've been successful at, and that the culture that we have built, is we're not a system. We're an independent hospital. It's not some guy in Denver or Salt Lake or Phoenix telling us how to run healthcare in our community. It's me. And I think letting them be successful and not, you always hear heavy-handed of administration coming in and this is how many patients you have to see. That's not us. And what's happening is that these level 1 and level 2 trauma centers out of these big urban centers, these hospitals are just killing these doctors. Yeah. And when I was hiring this GI guy, he called me and it was like 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. And he's walking around the hospital in Denver. And he's like, they don't care what they think. They keep adding patients. I've already got this many. I can't do that. And he's just fuming. I'm like, listen to yourself. Come out here. Let us be the solution. And then he gets out here, and a month after he was here, he's like, oh my gosh. And they could just feel the weight float off their shoulders. He's like, this is what it should be. And because of that, I'm getting more and more physicians from these urban centers. One, I live in a very beautiful area, but it's actually the culture within the hospital that is attracting them. And I get the question, well, Jeff, how long are you going to be here? Right? Because it does change.
Yeah.
And I grabbed probably definitely of the probably best GI guy in the country. He did the most ERCPs in the country the last 2 years from Colorado Springs, and he's here in Montrose. And we're pulling people from other states sending patients here.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's fantastic.
You know, I got to talk about that experience because the way I found you was Matty Blanchard, and I have to give him a shout out. And here's a friend, started out as a guest. Now, Matty, I'm in your top 3 friend groups, you know, and he said I was top 5, but the fact that I'm shouting them out, I'm going top 3. But he's been paralyzed twice. And so here's a man who's been to all kinds of doctors, all kinds of hospitals. He's been all over the world having issues. And he calls me up. He's like, dude, this is the best experience I have ever had. And here's a man who lives in southern Utah talking about Montrose Regional Health Center in Colorado, saying it's the best experience he's ever had. So with that being said, what are you doing differently that exposes to failure of the largest systems, and why aren't other hospitals following your model?
I think what we're doing different is really focusing on the patients, right? Our mission is treat you like family, and that truly is. You're not just a number here. We're an urban center. They're seeing so many. It's just like, all right, your patient 432 today. Let's get you seen and get you out, you know? And because we're smaller and that we have a very, very specific focus on the experience and the quality, right? And the physicians are 100% behind it. My entire emergency room department is all board certified physicians, and they're training out of like Detroit, you know, Salt Lake, Denver, Atlanta. These people moved here because of where we're at, but I'm getting the best of the best. And they're here because of the culture and the relationship. And what I love, their motto, which I love, is like, Jeff, our job is to make your life easier as the CEO and not have to deal with anything or deal with any physician issues whatsoever, because you'll pay a little extra for that when it comes contract him. I'm like, you're damn right I will. And, but it's just that we're all moving in the same direction. It's all transparent. Everybody knows where we're going. Our vision, which we just changed a year ago, and I'm so pumped because my competitive spirit has rubbed off on everybody, and they came up with it. And they came up, our vision is to be the best hospital system in the state of Colorado. And you can walk around the entire hospital and ask any caregiver, ask any provider, and they will tell you, oh yeah, we're going to be the best, right? You think of the NFL teams they just started. You think the coaches walked in there say we're going to be we're going to make playoffs this year. Hell no, they're talking about this year's our year, we're going to go to the Super Bowl, right? How is that any different for us in the business world that no, we're going to be the best in what we do by far. And this is the metric we're going to go, and we're going to continue to strive for that.
So I have a follow-up with that, because Spencer and I will both know when you have a small office, you can control stuff. And the stuff we see, PT clinics, chiropractic clinics, medical clinics, when they do get really good and people come from all over and they explode and they get bigger and bigger and they buy a bigger place, all of a sudden now they become a mill and their quality just goes through in the shit. So what happens if you guys do become a Mayo Clinic size, a UCLA size, a huge size? How do you control what is making you great now at the next level?
It's all about building the foundation, and I can't be there, right? I can influence like my senior leadership team, maybe a few directors, but really what's getting it all is you have to start at the very top and work all the way down from your directors to your managers, to your supervisors, to your leads. We've put on 6 different leadership trainings, which Matt was one of our guest speakers, just hammering like stuff that I already know, but just talk about leadership rounding, talk about that. And you have to stay consistent and keep moving, because it takes 3 to 5 years to truly change culture. I'm 4 years into it and I'm already seeing it. I'm like, there's still some tweaks that we can even get better. And you can't lose sight of it. That's who we are, and you can't let growth change that. And so that's what we're so focused on, is that because we're growing so fast, how can we slow it down, take a breath, not lose the vision or the quality that we're focused on? And as you look at the big systems, it does start at the top. And then it's empowering your other presidents of hospitals, if you have multiple hospitals, right? Do they believe in the culture? Do they have what it takes, right? Mayo, everybody's like, oh, Mayo is the greatest. You look at Mayo and they are fantastic. Mayo is Mayo in Rochester. I was in southern Minnesota competing against Mayo on the rural side, but they struggle too, is because you can't take the Mayo Rochester Kool-Aid and feed it to all your rural hospitals that have 3,000 people in the population. You have to adapt and change and keep everybody on moving at the same pace.
Mm-hmm. Boy, that got me fired up about having that mantra of being the best. I forget how effective that is and how contagious that excitement can be. So I commend you on that. Jeff, I want to ask you, Big Pharma has obviously, developed a sinister presence in this country, and how it influences doctors to, maybe prescribe when it's unnecessary. That's a whole nother interview. But how do you feel that the pharmaceutical industry is with the hospital? Do they have a control? Do they have a presence that changes some of the doctors that work with you a different perspective than what you would like? Are they, shifting a sense of? Are they a challenge to the way you run things?
Big Pharma, not necessarily. Like, we have tight controls. I'm reps coming in and like buying lunch and doing all that crazy. And that's pretty much, I would say, throughout the industry, healthcare industry, they have pretty tight controls on that. Where I'm seeing Big Pharma starting to play huge roles is legislation. And it's not, yes, they're always going after federal, but now they're okay, let's start at state level. Like, I just went through a huge fight with our state legislation, and it's a 340B drug program where rural hospitals, federally qualified community hospitals, critical access hospitals, because you have a large amount of Medicaid, we can buy pharmacy drugs at the VA rate. So the U.S. government is able to negotiate, because they have the biggest health system, the VA, these great rates. So then they can pass that on to us. So we get a low rate, which then we can make a little money. The patient actually saves money, and then the pharmacy actually makes a little money. So it's a three-way win. And so why Big Pharma is constantly on attack with that, because they want more than win. But yet I'm sitting here struggling as other rural community hospitals or whoever with, razor thin margins, but yet they're billions of dollars of profit. And you could say the exact same thing with the insurance companies right now. Billions of dollars worth of profit, but yet I can't get paid on time. And if I get too much paid, I'm noticing as we're growing, as we're on this level, like, oh, this is how much you get every month. But I'm like, yeah, you still owe me $4 million. I'm having to try to, like, when are you going to pay that to me? Oh, we'll get it to you.
So you deal with that too, huh?
100%.
I thought it was just us doctors, But with that said, Jeff, I'm curious of how it works when, like, with maybe implants or equipment or things like that not just Big Pharma and their medications, but other companies that are looking to pivot themselves in your hospital. Do they talk to you, or do they talk to the doctors? How does that whole thing work?
Oh, they're very sneaky. Very sneaky.
Yeah.
And they will go talk to the doctor, right? And then what they're doing now is they're grabbing medical schools. So everybody wants a robot, right? All my surgeons want this robot and that robot, and we've got like 5 different robots. Well, I want this robot by this brand, by this company. Oh, why? Oh, because that's the robot I used when I went through my fellowship over here. Well, this other spine surgeon trained over here, and they use that vendor. You guys got to figure it out on which one we're getting. But what they've done is they've started now in these residencies and these fellowships, getting it in there and getting them expecting to use it. I can't even do surgery without a robot anymore. And I have more of the seasoned guys like, I didn't even have a robot when I went through training. Why can't you do it this way? Because they become reliant on it, which then forces the hospitals, and these even rural hospitals, trying to get a general surgeon that isn't trained on the robot. Now, I demand a robot. Well, that's hugely expensive, and there's not enough volume to get a robot. And so, yeah, we're dealing with the vendors as well as technology continues to, and it's great quality care, right? And we're seeing improvements in quality outcomes and less invasive. But it's all these pressures, right? And that's what I'm talking. As a CEO, I got Big Pharma, I got insurance companies. Now I got robot vendors. I got all these people, let alone just trying to take care of the patient.
I want to inject in something. I want to ask something based off of that. We had a guest on who had stage 4 cancer, and they wanted to do typical chemo and radiation, and her response is they spent trillions of dollars on this research for cancer and chronic diseases, yet they haven't dramatically shifted in the treatments over the years with all this money poured in. And she wanted to go a different path. She wanted to go a more holistic path. And she ended up spending $87,000 of her own money, and she cured. She's totally cancer-free. And when she looked back at the numbers, they would have paid for the old care or the radiation and chemo $270,000, which would have been approved by insurance, but they wouldn't be approved for this holistic care. Do you ever see doctors or hospitals ever looking at alternative care based off of research and scientific? Is political driven? What is holding back this blend of Western, Eastern, other thought processes? What do you think is holding it back when you go to a hospital?
I do see more physicians kind of taking that. I do see, hear from them journal articles, peer-reviewed articles, and how this works. That I do starting to see a blend, but insurance companies don't pay for that, right? That's the big hindrance. Is like, well, I can't afford that. Well, you can take this chemo drug that we've been using for 15 years, and that's been approved through Medicaid, CMS, and through the insurance company. And I think that's still the biggest. We get more denials now. I mean, they want denials and to regulate the hospitals to drive down hospital costs. Well, I just have to hire, I think, 12 different people to fight the denials to get paid what we do. I mean, and then now what we're also seeing is AI. Is that AI is scrubbing these claims from physicians, and if it doesn't include this one word or this one phrase, boom, denied. And then we're going to add AI to redo it and send it back. So AI is going to have a fight with AI, and then and it gets denied 2 times, and you got to call. And that's taken 3-4 months on top of the normal process. So how, you're providing, healthcare is the only industry you provide a service here and hope you get paid 6 months from now, 3 to 6 months later.
Painful. So, okay, I'm going to piggyback on that thought. Have you ever imagined maybe having a department that was more holistic? I know there's one hospital that actually developed. I'm in Florida, South Florida, and I know that they created a more a small department that was run by a doctor that had a little more of a perspective on alternative or complementary medicine, and it was a cash-based system and that works. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we've seen it. I have a couple physicians here. They're staying independent. They're independent. They have their own practice, but supported by us. And I know I'm talking to one right now that is interested in adding another, and we help with recruitment and fees for them to be independent. Not everybody has to be employed by the hospital as physicians. And but I definitely see a huge place in it as it evolves. And you can see JFK, right? He's trying to push all the healthiness, get rid of all the dyes, get rid of all that craziness. Somehow I can go to Europe and eat pasta and bread and not gain a pound. And then here I can't even look at bread. And I'm like, oh, getting fat again.
Yeah, no kidding. Actually, I forgot about this, but this is about 25 to 30 years ago. I don't even recall how I started connecting with a medical doctor. Again, I'm in South Florida, very open-minded. He was an administrator of a hospital in California back, obviously 30 or so years ago. He's now he was then an administrator at a hospital here, and was very open to having a chiropractic department. The challenge was, and he told me, he goes, I'm all for it. You're the guy. And he had me speak with the board of medicine, for the hospital. And I started out by saying, look, this was again, 25 or so years ago. I said, look, we don't have horns. I don't have a tail. I'm trained as a chiropractor, and I'm trained to work together. So, we ended up having a department in a hospital, and then that hospital was an example for another. So it started to grow. Again, it's covered by insurance, but it also can be, it's a small ticket item. It could be a cash-based approach. I'm just throwing some ideas out at you because those are some things that the public would go, oh, wow, this hospital is very different from, and it worked out cool. But I will tell you, for a chiropractor that was in a private practice, it's a different place to be in a hospital. So, it's you got some very sick people there that that you could lend a hand and help out. I will say that the doctors and the nurses were very into the chiropractic perspective. It was pretty cool to see.
No, I'd agree. And I think it's just more of that, right? Everybody's wanting to do less or take control of your own healthcare.
Yeah.
Right. And we're actually, we have very good spine surgeons, very kind of non-invasive, minimal invasive stuff. And we'll get second opinions like, well, you haven't even tried. Have you tried, Pete, physical therapy? Like, no, you haven't even failed physical therapy. Like, we should probably start there. Let's build some muscle around that, see how you feel. Right. And then, maybe an injection. And then the last resort is the spine or, chiropractic. You're going to chiropractic adjustments with physical therapy. And, it's actually pulling people here versus like, nope, let's just cut and, move on.
Any thoughts about preventative medicine, preventative care versus, obviously reactive care, which this country is very much involved in? They wait till they have pain or illness or injury. Any thoughts on preventative care?
Yeah, I think through like community health centers, who are kind of the safety net for all across the country, which is bipartisan, are that safety net. And they actually have really good metrics of, when was your colonoscopy? When was your female exam? When was, diabetes and all this, and moving to that preventative and really looking at getting people in sooner. Like we just implemented cardiac CTA. So it's a CT scan with contrast for your heart. And what it's actually done, and not thinking of it, is it's actually decreased our cath lab volume in the cardiology department because you don't need to go get a cath procedure, right? Because of technology is increasing, what I'm seeing is less and less in the hospital. And what the world's moving to is outpatient surgery and outpatient stuff. When now you're on same day, you go get your knee done and you're out the same day. You used to have to stay in the hospital 2-3 days, and that's what it just continues more and more. And that's where I think technology is playing a role into being more preventative and getting those scans and being proactive with that.
All right, I got to ask a question. We're going to put you on the spot a little bit, and I only want you to answer yes or no. So I don't want anything. Did you ever do black ops missions?
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason I'm asking that question is black op missions, at least in the Hollywood in the world, they're known to cut red tape. They do something above everything else just to get the job done. So you're the only Navy SEAL who's a CEO of a hospital, and you're used that to defy expectations. If you had a blank slate and no political, no financial barriers, basically like a black ops, how would you completely redesign U.S. healthcare, and what sacred cow would you go after first?
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. A big question. I didn't know where it was going at first. I'm like, okay, what are we talking about? Man, it's interesting, right? You look at Medicare for all. You look at Canada. I'm actually talking to Canada right now, because if you want a spine surgery, you're out 18 to 24 months to get spine surgery because they have kind of socialized medicine. So what rich people are doing in Canada is they're paying cash, $80 to $120,000, $150,000 paying cash, flying to Germany, getting whatever they want done, grabbing their records and taking them back to Canada. And then the spine surgeons there are struggling to, figure out what happened. And, you look at, they talk about Medicare for all. No, I think it is payment reform. So I have a general contractor, builds houses. His name is, he's Guatemalan originally and now is just doing great. He builds gorgeous houses. And I had to explain to him how healthcare finance works. Is that when I charge $100 for something, I only get paid maybe $30, $25 of that, but I have to charge this up here. I said, you'd have to go into Home Depot and you're going to see that 2x4 is $10, but you're only going to pay $3 for it. But actually your buddy who negotiated rates better, who's a little bit bigger, could actually get it for $2.50. So what? Or walk into the brand new house, say, I'm not going to pay this, I'm going to pay this. Well, no, you can't. Nope, you have to accept it. Sorry. And that's what we're dealing with when you look at, it's true just payment reform. And it starts at legislation. This question I've sat around roundtables with other CEOs of like, how would we do this? I sat beside our local congressman actually at a gala on Saturday. And he asked me and my buddy CEOs, like, can you come out to DC and just help me figure out healthcare? We're like, yeah. It is very complicated, but when you look at Medicaid and Medicare, it's forcing more and more private docs to join systems because you're having to get bigger. And you see these bigger systems getting bigger because you need economies of scale, and then you can negotiate with payers. And I'm not really answering it now. I'm listening to myself. I'm not really answering your question. But I think it comes down to true payment reform. And how do you have a payment system that is equal no matter what the size you are? Maybe you can supplement the rural facilities, but helping them take that next step. So I'd love to have this is what we're going to do. Honestly, talking to a bunch of CEOs, there's a lot of innovative things out there, but I don't have the exact answer for you.
Well, let me piggyback on that then, because you mentioned Canada. Because at one time we were the healthcare system was one way, and then Obamacare came in and it shifted to another way using some stuff from Canada, and now it's shifting back again. And yet you do see people traveling to other countries because they can get stuff done. So based off of that, what have you seen different things tried? Where do you think we need to, the needle goes to the left and needle goes to the right? Where do you find this common ground, and what needs to be cut out and what needs to be brought back in?
I think there needs to be clear expectations and clear goals, which, for the whole country, for different services. And you could do bundle payments and, you just get paid for performance, right? And I think that's pay for performance is probably where it should go, right? The more I do, the more I get paid, versus how healthy are my patients? Am I keeping them out of the emergency room? Are they getting all their diagnostics? Are they getting their preventative stuff? I'm going to get paid extra for that. And that's where the star rating, I think, is coming into a play is if I'm a 5-star hospital, I'm going to get paid better than a 1-star because I have proven that I'm providing higher quality care, which is actually decreasing the cost to CMS, the government. But you would need payers to say, hey, you can't make billions of profit on the backs of healthcare and healthy people, because you're now getting baby boomers getting wrapped into that. But I think as you look at just it, you just same thing with pre-auth. We're going to do pre-auth because it's going to save money. No, I'm having to hire 10, 12 people just to get paid now, and I'm adding expense, which then gets equated to my cost report and everything else, and it just increases expenses.
Do you see the doctors starting to shift more from symptom care to cause care?
I do see a little bit more of that. I have a very good cardiologist, and she's just focused on that, really getting ahead of it, right, and being very progressive. And I see where you're going. Let's do this. GO1s is rocking the world across the country. And how is that? If you start dropping weight, all of a sudden now all those cardiac systems, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, triglycerides, whatever is starting to drop. Okay, well, now you're not using the system as much because you're actually healthier and losing the weight. But how is it affecting? But I do think they are moving to that, trying to get ahead of those things. Yes, we still have acute care, but it's providing services right there to the patients and the access. Well, I don't want to wait 6 weeks and I got busy, I forgot about it, and off I go. Or it costs too much money.
Interesting. Just yesterday, a patient came in, was telling me about they had spinal stenosis, and then they had this certain surgery using a high frequency sound, a sound, you might think of it like ultrasound, but it was very directed. And Dr. Terry will know exactly who I'm talking about because we had him on our show. He's an orthopedic surgeon that did the procedure, Jeff Cantor. Remember we had him on? Mm-hmm. And it's such a unique approach. And what I'm really building up to is the fact that I said, did you go to Dr. Cantor? And he said, yeah, with all the orthopedic surgeons in South Florida, he has his fingerprints on this approach. And with that said, this orthopedic surgeon takes such pride in his work. I ended up meeting with him face-to-face because he puts his patients on a nutritional supplement program to reduce comorbidities and other possible, complications, pre, post, and post surgery. Why did that happen? Is because he takes such pride in what he does that the surgery was successful, but the patient became septic. So he started looking at what could be done to make things different. So I thought when you were mentioning that, I mean, you're looking at a reduction in post-op care in case of any of the comorbidities surface after surgery. These are novel ideas that a surgeon is doing. That, man, it's things that could be done with if the surgeons in your hospital are exposed, that they could do nutritional workups and reduce complications. Just probably other avenues of revenue that are cash based, maybe, or that would attract people to your hospital. It's really novel approach. Again, preventative measures. So anyway, other than that, Dr. Terry, do you want to? If you don't have any other questions, I can go right into rapid fire questions.
Well, I figured since I already got him with the Black Ops question and it got his face a little red, we might as well just go right into it.
All right. So let me explain so he doesn't get any more concerned or worried that we're going to ask him off-the-wall question. All right. The behavior of our show is one of the most fun parts is near the end. And since we're closing in on the end of the show, we do this thing called rapid fire questions. There's 5 questions that may have nothing to do with the current subject matter, but it's about you and how you are quick on your feet. I would imagine you would do quite well. Now, it is rapid fire, but we end up getting caught up in some of your answers because they're interesting. There's 5 of them. Are you ready, Jeff, for question number 1?
Oh, I'm so ready.
All right, what's tougher? Navy SEAL Hell Week or running a hospital or owning a dive shop in Belize during tourist season?
Man, I'd still say it depends on the day, but I would still say Hell Week, 100%.
Wow. All right. Did you hear that, Dr. Terry? So that might deter you from becoming a Navy SEAL.
That shit fires me up. I like shit like that.
Good answer. All right, Jeff. Question number 2. You're friends with Chris Kyle. What's one lesson or story from him that you carry with you every day?
I think with Chris, he was the ultimate, team guy, right? Just continuing to drive forward. The op tempo got so fast when we were in there. I think just continuing to look forward, being always honing your skills, right? He was very good, and that's what he lived and breathed. And being that good just doesn't happen by chance, right? So what does the ingredients to excellence? You can wake up to be okay. You can wake up to be good, but to be great, like Chris Kyle or someone or an NFL athlete, you have to put in the effort and the time to be great. It just does not happen over chance.
Very, very cool. Oh, I just got goosebumps. For those who don't know Chris Kyle, he was considered America's deadliest sniper, but that's a whole nother interview. All right. Question number 3. Good job so far, Jeff. As a hospital CEO, what's the one thing patients do that secretly drive you nuts, but you'll never say anything publicly until now?
Secretly drive me nuts. I would say we're never good enough here. In our small community, they expect greatness.
Yeah.
And so we're never like, well, I didn't get water on time. Like, okay, we're there. I have this patient, we have a patient coding down here, but I'll get you the water.
Wow.
And what's great is that we get people from like San Francisco, because we're kind of a tourist area, San Francisco, Dallas, Atlanta, these people coming, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. You guys are amazing here. Like Matt, you guys are amazing here. And our own community has even higher standards that sometimes we can't meet. It drives me crazy. I'm like, did you go to like San Francisco, go to the hospital there?
I love it. Hey, Terry, how would you answer that question?
What drives me crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, whining about the stuff that doesn't matter.
All right. Fair enough. I always laugh when I'm in a grocery store or something, and somebody finds out that I'm a chiropractor, and they ask, I got this neck thing going on, and I go, we're in the produce section of the grocery store. What if I was a gynecologist? Would you ask me about your vagina? Come on. All right, so moving right along. Question number 4. What's more relaxing for you, Jeff? Diving into the ocean in Belize or diving into spreadsheets at a hospital?
Wow. It's really tough for me to let me really think
I'm going
about
with B. I think B is the answer, don't you?
He's going to say that now to be politically correct.
When I started diving in Belize, it was so different. And they're like, this is great. Like, I can actually see things. When I was in the military, it's like I look at a compass and I can't even see my hand in front of my face, and I'm under a boat diving in a bay in San Diego or something stupid. Wow. So when you're out like on a reef, like, are you kidding me? Like, this is great.
And whoever thought a guy in South Dakota would own a dive shop?
Yeah. How funny. Oh, very cool. All right, Jeff, so far, super good. Question number 5, last one. If you could ban one buzzword from corporate healthcare forever, what would it be, and what would you replace it with?
Ooh, one buzzword.
Gosh, Terry, I don't know if
I got it.
Oh, there you go.
I got it. Well, kind of we've always done it this way.
Good one. Yeah.
Dude, I can't stand it. We've always done it this way. Like, there's other ways to do it, or let's shake it up.
Right.
And that's not allowed in my organization. And and people say that, but it's so easy to say no, so easy to say this, say we've always done it this way. No, just in our organization we always say yes, and we make it better. Yes, and. So you actually and the and. I think we should, maybe have patients come in and we can provide them with some juice. I'm like, well, yes, but what if we give them like a breakfast burrito? Oh, you know what, Jeff? Yes. And what if we actually give them breakfast burrito and a whole meal on us saying, thank you for coming in. And you just keep taking it 5 times. And then you actually like, wow, what if we actually did that? Well, what if we actually did some of that? What is the cost of that? And then like, holy crap, that works. Like what, and it doesn't have to, it could be quality. It could be just the experience of just breaking the mold. And once you break the mold and it's kind of, you're pushing that boulder and it's hard to get it started. But once you start getting it started, man, it starts rolling and it's a heck of a lot easier.
How perfect an answer is that? I mean, that we're obviously ending the show right now, but I got to tell you, philosophically, that's so inspiring because we could apply that same principle to anything that we do. And I know Dr. Terry and I have been practicing for a heck of a long time. And that's a question that we can currently ask, what can we do better and how can we shift and change? Thanks, Jeff. That was really great.
Absolutely.
Thank you for taking the time. That was just magical. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. I love just being able to bring humor, bring can-do attitude back to healthcare is my goal.
Right on.
We're doing a great job, and when you want to come to California, you can take over our hospitals too.
In South Florida. While you're at it.
All right.
Thanks,
Take care, Jeff.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Crackin Backs Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Crackin Backs Podcast. Catch new episodes every Monday. See you next time.